What lurks behind this unassuming storefronts in Cleveland, Ohio? It's the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft and Magic. Learn the history of Wicca and the tale of those who brought it to the United States. See the tools of magic, once used by practitioners of the arcane arts. It's the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft and Magic.
Let's see. All right. So, welcome back to the Buckland Museum Frankenstein Radio Control Room, which exists somewhere deep inside a beautiful garden, deep in a forest, the kind of place you can only find while being lured there by a song played by the pipes of Pan. We are brought to you today by our friends at the Cleveland Area Pagan Pride, coming up in August. And not really sure what the deal is, but you should go visit their website. You can find it pretty easily, and you'll find out what's going on with Pagan Pride this year. It's a pretty incredible event, and I seem to remember running into our guest tonight, Patty Wigington, there. So, highly recommend it. You may have heard that we are now reopened. The reopening was yesterday, and I'm very excited to show the collection back to the world. But, it has to be pretty rigid for a while if you want to come. Order tickets online at bucklandmuseum.org. And because, we get a lot of guests here. And social distancing. You stay over there, I'll stay over here. We're good, right? So let's see. Yeah, we can only have 6 guests here at a time. So all right, so today we're going to be hanging out with Patty Wigington. You know her from her online writings. You know her from her workshops. You know her from her books. The latest, Herb Magic, is pretty badass. I've really been enjoying it. One of the great things about Patty is she's been to the museum a couple times already. She's lectured here. So she's watched us grow over the last few years and, become a very dear friend along the way. So really excited to have her here. I think she might be my first guest other than Tony, my partner in the museum, that actually has been here. So it's kind of cool. And so Patty, what is happening?
Hi, how are you, Stephen?
I'm pretty good. Just
good.
Hanging out. It's been 2 days of being open. We've had some really cool people in yesterday. There were some people from North Carolina and some people from Dayton. Really nice. And then
cool.
I think today it's been pretty much locals only. And everybody's been cool. Everybody's been wearing the masks, which I like.
Keeping masks are huge.
Yeah. So it's been pretty good. How you been doing? How's the pandemic treating Patty Wigington?
Well, it's kind of weird. So for my full-time job, which a lot of people don't realize that I'm not like a full-time professional pagan, like I actually have a real job in the corporate world. But I have worked from home since 2013 from this little setup here, which is my home office. So for me, that part of it really wasn't weird. All these people are like, now I have to work from home and I'm going to eat all my quarantine snacks the first day. I'm like, oh, my sweet summer child, trust me, you don't want to do that. But, for me, working from home wasn't that big of it was zero transition at all. What was really, and it continues to be a challenge for me, is by this point, we're coming up on the end of May. Usually by now, for me, my season typically starts mid-March. So by now I would have been to several festivals. I'd have done workshops. I would have had a book launch party back in April when Herb Magic came out. I would have done all these things. I'd have gone to, see my friends. That's the book. I'd have gone to see my friends' bands play live. I'd have had a social life. And all of a sudden, none of that happened. so that's been a challenge. Normally I'm somebody who's pretty even keeled, but I've had a few moments over the past 9 weeks where I'm just kind of like, oh my God, I'm not okay. Right now I'm okay though, so that's cool, you know.
Honestly, I think my worst moment of all this was like day one, like the last time I closed the museum and I was sitting at home on my couch and I was just like, this is it. Great.
Yeah.
This is my life now, sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
And then after that, I don't know. All things must pass, right? George Harrison.
Yeah. I think for me, my major breakdown was somewhere around towards the end of the second or beginning of the third week.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm somebody who's, like I said, I'm normally pretty even keeled, and I had what was probably a panic attack, but I don't know because I've never had one. It felt like what I imagine a panic attack probably would feel like. And it was because I had to go to work at the food pantry where I volunteer every Tuesday night, and I knew I was going to be around people, and it terrified me, and it shouldn't have, because I'm around this same core group of 300 or so families every Tuesday night. But the idea of being around people just really set me over the edge. And by the time I got there, I was fine. But that for me, it was pretty bleak. I didn't like it. And I've had a few moments since then where I'm just kind of like, it's not so much the staying home and it's not so much the isolation, because like I mentioned to you earlier, I mean, I'm Zooming 6 to 10 times a week. So I'm still in contact with the outside world.
Yeah.
It's the uncertainty of not knowing when this is going to end. I had to cancel a trip to Denver to see my grandbaby in April. I had to cancel my Myrtle Beach vacation in June. I had, Mystic South, which is a huge conference every year in Atlanta in July, has already been canceled.
I was presenting.
I
was presenting at Mystic South this year, so.
Oh, were you? I didn't realize you were. We could have carpooled.
I know. Next year
we will totally carpool, because it's such a great experience. I love Mystic South, and gut wrench that they canceled it, but totally understand why they canceled it. I mean, I totally get it. But now it's like this uncertainty, like, am I ever going to leave my own neighborhood again? I don't know. It's weird.
And that reminds me to everybody that was looking forward to our 3-year anniversary party that we're going to have in the back. I talked to Kelly today, and we're trying to figure it out. We're probably going to figure out a way to do it like a QVC online sort of thing, because I just can't have large masses of people behind the museum. So sorry if that disappoints anyone, but we're not the only ones canceling anything, right?
Right. And that's the thing, is like now it's like canceling stuff is kind of par for the course. I mean, I have stuff scheduled in like, August and September, and I'm kind of like, we'll see if it happens. I don't know.
Yeah. So Sandy Doman says, hello, glad I caught this interview.
Hello,
glad
Sandy.
to have you here, Sandy. And then we have Marie Nasser. She says, good evening. Good evening to you. Jennifer Parsons, she's an awesome friend of ours, and she's always chiming in. Greetings, Steve. Thank you for doing these videos. So much love, strength, and great health to you and your family. Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, she's sweet. I like that.
Yeah, Jennifer is very sweet. Kelvin, good evening. Good evening,
Kelvin. Good evening.
And then Amber Harris says, love you guys. And we love you back.
Hey, Amber.
Thank you. So if
I like people are tuning in. This is cool.
So if anybody out there has any questions for Patty about herb magic, I'm sure she'd love to at least wing it, see what she could come up with.
We're doing it on the fly here.
So Patty, I gotta ask you, yeah, okay, so Sandy Doman says, I've learned so much from Patty's articles over the years. You're awesome. And I gotta say that
thank you. Truly, thank you.
Because, I take care of the Buckland Museum social media. And anytime there's something coming up where I'm like, I should probably post about Beltane, right? And I'm like, I bet Patty's got an article about Beltane. And
there's an article for that.
So there we go. So Herb Magic recently released. Okay, so Patty, there are lots of herb books out there in the world. And I gotta say, why were you like, the world needs another one? Because I'm saying that, and I think this book's fantastic. Out of all the herb magic books that I've been around, I'm like, oh, this is actually going to stay on my shelf for a long time. So
Right. Well, it's funny because originally my first thought was the last thing we need is another herb magic book.
Right.
So what had happened was I was approached by the folks at Callisto Publishing, which in 2017 I had worked with them on a book called Wicca Practical Magic. It was one of my first witchy books that came out, and they were wonderful to work with. I mean, everything about working with that company was fantastic, and they were great. So they approached me at the end of last summer, and they had an idea for a book, and they were like, hey, here we have this idea for this book. Here's the topic. Would you be interested in writing it? And I thought about it because I had really enjoyed working with them. It had been a great experience. Hey, Nathan. Oh my gosh. Hi. I had thought about taking on this project with them, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized it just wasn't a good fit. I wouldn't have been the right person to do that particular project justice. And so they asked me, well, okay, so if you were going to write a book with us, what would you want to write about? And I was like, I don't know, herb magic maybe. I mean, honestly, that was like, I just kind of flung it out there. And then I didn't hear from them for a couple of weeks. And then they got back to me like a month later and they were like, so herb magic, what do you think? And I was like, all right, let's do this. And one of the things we wanted to do, because as you mentioned, there are hundreds, probably thousands of books on herbalism and its use in a magical context. I didn't feel like I needed to reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of people who have done a lot of amazing work that is way more in-depth and detailed than what I wanted. But what I wanted to do was put together something that was kind of a quick and dirty, hands-on, here's a bunch of herbs that I like to use, and here's what I like to do with them. And look, here are the spells that I do with them, so you can use them to make magic too. That was the bottom line. If you're looking for something that's like, yes, look, there's one right now.
So
it's a table of contents.
A bunch of the herbs that she uses. So
yeah. So that was kind of how it happened. Like I said, I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. If you want books on, the in-depth, if you want an in-depth herbal, you're looking at stuff way more doorstop-y size than what this is.
So we do have a comment here that's a bit of an aside. It's from Aaron Werner saying, I noticed that you didn't say that the hard part about the pandemic had been not seeing your boyfriend. Oh, come on.
It's true. And I love that he's just called me out publicly on that. But he's been a really good sport. Yeah, it's true. We haven't actually seen each other in person in 2 months, but
I imagine that
okay. By the time I do see him again, I'm gonna rock his world. So there's that.
So Lily Belton says, hello, Lily.
Hi, Lily.
So let's see. The book is so beautiful. Oh, whoa. So Danny Lee Maloney says the book is so beautiful and was amazing for this beginner.
That's Danielle. I know Danielle. She's wonderful, and she's been super supportive, and she said a lot of really nice things about it. So it is a really pretty book, though. The cover, though. Ooh.
Yeah, I have to say that the illustrations really knocked me out. Really beautiful.
Yeah.
And did you work with the artist at all, or did they just show up one day and you were like, "Wow, these are great"?
Yeah, they just appear like fairies in the night. So what happened was, as the book was underway, and I was working with the developmental editors, and they were like, "Okay, so here's the 40 herbs we want to have illustrated. You need to tell us what these things should look like, so we can hire an illustrator that does them properly," which I think is fair and reasonable. So I gave them sort of guidelines as far as, here's a picture of what rosemary looks like, or here's a picture of what lavender looks like when it's growing. And then the illustrators took sort of those images and reimagined them as a line and ink drawing. And they're beautiful. They're so simple, but they're just gorgeous. And I really, really love the way they turned out. They did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, it's really something that struck struck me. It's like the design of this is really beautiful and the illustrations and etc. So I noticed one here that you talk about is the mandrake root.
Yes.
So have you ever seen the mandrake that we have on display in the museum?
I don't know if I have or not.
It's
a pretty substantial one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's really, really gorgeous. And it's carved to look like a woman carrying children, so it's most definitely used
Okay.
as a fertility totem. And it's it's the kind of thing that when you hold it, you feel like.
Yeah.
I always say that one day somebody's going to come in from somebody who was, created out of the power of this.
With that mandrake root.
Psychically know it,
Yeah,
so.
they're going to know. They're going to be like, Grandma? Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. So, I've noticed that there's I've been hiking quite a bit because of quarantine.
Yeah. Sure.
And I've been coming across a lot of May-apples.
Yeah.
The American mandrake root.
Right.
And I don't know. Do you have any experience like substituting the American for the European?
I have not. I've not used that one myself, and it grows like crazy around here. I was just hiking this past Saturday at one of the local metro parks, which is chock full of trails, and the May-apples are just starting to bloom. They're starting to get their little nubbins on them. I've not used that as a substitute. So I'd be curious if anybody who's watching or listening has done that. Because it is a different plant. It's not the same thing at all.
Yeah. So Tamara Forslund from Australia.
Oh, Tamara! She's a wonderful, wonderful witch, and I love her.
She is. I just put up one of her banners that she'd given us last year up into the museum, and it looks very striking. And
nice.
It's going to get humid soon, so it's going to be less wrinkly in a little bit. So I'm excited to share that with the world. And Lisa Malloy. Hello, Steve and Patty.
Hey, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa. How you doing?
Lisa, I think, was one of the folks. She and I are Facebook friends, but I think she came when I did a presentation in the old space. Yeah.
In that tiny little space. And,
that tiny little space, and we were talking about the history of witchcraft.
Yeah, I had some guests that came in today, and they told me about how big they thought the museum was, and I was like, "Oh, bless your heart! It's really wonderful."
Well, I mean, your new space compared to the first place you guys were, I mean, it's significantly bigger.
We were actually looking at a place even larger, like a couple days before the world fell apart. And I'm like, well, I'm glad we didn't sign any papers that day.
Right.
So we got probably a little bit of time. So can you tell us about the first time you ever, you were like, I got to do something. I got to do a spell. And what am I going to use? I got to use some herbs.
Yeah. So
intuitively, is it something that you had taken from a grimoire, or perhaps like Big Blue, or maybe like Cunningham's book?
Yeah. So when I first started practicing, there were only like 4 books you could buy on witchcraft. Big Blue was one of them, and I still have my original copy from 1986 or 7 or whatever. It's signed by Ray Buckland, which is kind of neat. So you had that, you had Starhawk's Spiral Dance, and you had Scott Cunningham's Wicca for the Solitary Practitioner. Anything other than that, you had to order through the mail. So I had been studying using Big Blue as kind of like my guideline, because I didn't actually know anybody in person who, hey, look, that's the one. I didn't actually know anybody in person who was doing the things that I wanted to do. So a lot of it really was a self-study program at that time. So I was working my way through there and, kind of getting ideas. And I had started doing some of the basic stuff like, oh, now I'm going to cast a circle before I meditate. I'm going to set up my altar. I'm going to do all these things. But I hadn't really quite dived into spell work yet. And then I had a friend a coworker actually, who told me he had some pretty significant medical issues, and he was in a lot of pain. And, I was like, oh man, that's terrible. If only somebody could do something to, And that was when I thought to myself, if I'm not doing healing magic, if I'm not, at least using some of what I'm learning to send good vibes to people I care about that are hurting, why the hell am I doing this? Why am I even bothering to learn? So that was kind of my first foray. And so I put together a thing, using some of the knowledge that I had learned from Big Blue and from Cunningham, and, which you can say what you want about Scott Cunningham, maybe or maybe not being a little bit on the fluffy side, but the fact is a lot of people of our generation learned a lot of things from Scott Cunningham. Yeah.
As an aside, Raymond Buckland became a professional writer because of Scott, because he knew Scott, he knew Scott's dad, and his dad was a cowboy writer.
Yeah.
He would write paperbacks about cowboys, and he was just like, Ray, you gotta go for it. You can't just work your little part-time job while writing a little bit here. You gotta delve into it. And that's why we're here right now. So
yeah. So that was kind of my first foray. So I put together this herbal thing that I did. And I've always sort of had this philosophy of, it was sort of that set it and forget it thing. Like once I do my working, then unless it's something that is an ongoing working or something that I need to repeat on a regular basis, it's kind of like, boom, it's done. I walk away and I don't look back. And within about a week, my friend called me. He was like, you're not going to believe this. He's like, but after you and I talked the last time, I started feeling better and things are actually looking up right now. And so there was a clear improvement, Now, of course, me being the brain that I have, I was kind of like, well, maybe he was just going to get better anyway. How do I know that what I did had any bearing? And of course, you don't know that. You're always second guessing yourself. But that was kind of my first step into the use of magical herbs.
So, hey, I was wondering if, this isn't really herb magic, but one time you told me this wild story, and it was an early magic story, and it was about driving your car a little bit too fast.
Oh, yeah.
Again?
Yeah. So the speeding ticket story, should we talk about that?
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Okay. I actually like to tell this story because it serves as a perfect example of a cautionary tale. In other words, me screwing up so you don't have to. And one of the things that this story does is it's 100% true, and it illustrates the value of putting some thought into your working in advance, as well as making sure that you are truly articulating what it is that you need from the universe, what it is that you want from the universe. So years ago, like I said, this was back when I first started practicing. I was probably 19, I think. I was pretty young. And excuse me. So I was living in South Carolina at the time. My parents lived in Ohio. And I had driven up to Ohio to visit them, and I was driving home back to South Carolina. Now, understand that at the time I had this really sexy '67 Impala Super Sport convertible. It was a color I can only describe as arrest me red, which actually was kind of prophetic, but so I'm cruising through the mountains in West Virginia, up and down the hills, just hauling ass down 77, got the top down, got some Van Halen cranked up on the cassette player because it's 1989. And look in the rearview mirror, and there's one of West Virginia's finest is hitting me with the lights in the mirror. I was like, I knew this wasn't one of those things of, gee, officer, I had no idea how fast I was going. No, I knew exactly why he was pulling my ass over, because I was hauling butt. So he pulls me over, he writes me this ticket, and sends me on my merry way. Now, this is the part where I have to remind people, I was 19 and I was really stupid, and I was cocky, which is not a good combination for somebody who's just starting to learn about witchcraft. It's just not. So I got this ticket, and it says you can mail your, $130, $120 or whatever. It was a good sized ticket because I was 20 plus miles over the speed limit.
Right.
I was lucky he didn't get me for reckless ops. But anyway, so it's you can mail your check here. And I was like, okay, that's in West Virginia. I ain't paying that. And
I'm not going to West Virginia ever again.
Yeah, I don't have to drive. I can always just drive further west and go up through Kentucky instead,
There you go.
So, I mean, and here's the thing, looking back at it, it wasn't that I didn't feel like I deserved the ticket. I knew I deserved that ticket. I just didn't think I should have to pay it because I didn't want to. And that was because I was 19 and stupid. So I decided, I'm going to magic this away. I'm learning about magic. That I can make this go away with magic. That's what I'm going to do. So I put together this working, and by the time I got to where I was actually doing the spell, I had gotten it into my head that somehow I had just been wronged. Like clearly none of this was my fault. This is a plot by the man trying to keep me down, So I did this working, and here's the key. Here's what I put out into the universe. That I wanted truth and justice to prevail.
Oh man.
You see where I'm going with this, Stephen, right? You see where I'm going.
Oh yeah.
So, truth and justice did prevail. A couple of weeks later, months or so, I don't know, some point later, I got a certified letter from the great state of Ohio, which had suspended my license because I didn't bother to pay my speeding ticket in West Virginia. Got a letter from my insurance company because I was now driving on a suspended license. They couldn't help but, not insure me. So I was gonna have to pay a bunch of money to get that back. And then at the same time, a couple of utility bills that I had defaulted on in Ohio before I moved to South Carolina. I mean, they caught up with me, and once I did the math, I ended up having to shell out like $600 or $700. All because I didn't want to pay this $120 speeding ticket. Now, as awful as this was, first of all, I learned my lesson, and I never make the same mistake twice. So you can bet your ass that this never happened again. But here's the other thing that's great about this. If you look at, and this was one of the first spells I had ever done. It might have been the first one I actually ever did for myself.
Okay.
It was 100% successful. I got exactly what I put out there. So when you look at it that way, I mean, it was a learning experience because I learned the value of being incredibly specific about your intent and your purpose when you're doing magic. But like I said, it was 100% successful. I got exactly what I asked for. I didn't get what I wanted, but I got what I requested. So that was the speeding ticket. And as an aside, the officer who signed the speeding ticket, no kidding, his last name was Batman. Batmann, I think. He pronounced it Batman. I'm like, it's Officer Batman. And for a long time, I saved that speeding ticket because it was signed by Batman.
Yeah, that is awesome. So
it was absurd.
So yeah, I always think about that because I get a lot of guests in here and they want magic done for them, and I'm like, well, we got to really set some ground rules, some foundation here. Don't just go crazy. So I'm going to do something here. We're going to do something for the first time.
Oh,
we are going to. It's essentially we're going to do a live remote. Feedback here. So let me turn off the here.
Oh wow! Look, you're in two places at once.
Whoa! All right. So hold on a second.
Okay.
Okay, so maybe the delay won't be so bad.
Okay.
I wanted to show you our herbalism display that we have here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. Can you hear me now?
So here's our mandrake root. Let's see. Can you see that?
Oh, wait. Shift back over to the side a little bit.
Let's see here.
There she is.
Isn't that beautiful?
That is gorgeous. That is absolutely amazing.
And and there's also a wonderful photo of Ray holding it back there.
Oh, dear sweet Ray.
Yeah. So you know what? I actually just have photos of these. So let me head back to
Oh, okay.
The dust.
That was kind of cool though, because I thought I had maybe seen the Mandrake Root when I was up there, but now I'm not so sure that I have, because I feel like I would have remembered something that magnificent. And it's beautiful.
I always point that out as one of the key pieces in the collection, because it's like, I mean, that's the real deal. I mean, the people that were using that, who, I mean, these would have been, when you talk about the Wicca, the wise ones, the people at the edge of town, the ones that know the map. That would have been one of them. So, let's see here. So here is one of the shelves of our display. And are you familiar with Osiris powder?
I'm not. That is not one I'm familiar with.
Well, I guess it's supposed to be like early witch Viagra. I don't know. So I think kind of funny. We have some mugwort here. We have some Angelica. So is Angelica in your book? I didn't check.
Angelica's not in there. Mugwort is, though, for sure.
Yeah, mugwort is like one of those truly like magical ones, because it really does like kind of seep into your worldview.
Yeah, I love mugwort. I grew it for a couple of years when I had my previous house. I had mugwort in the garden, and first of all, it's just like super dominant. Like it takes over every space that it's allowed to grow. But then I would harvest it at the end of the summer, and I would hang it up, from my ceilings, and it kind of made me feel like, oh, I really am sort of the corner bog witch who's like got the herbs hanging from, because like you'd walk into the house, it's like, oh, it smells like mugwort, it smells like magic. It was amazing.
It's mugwort season.
It is.
We have here, wormwood. Yeah.
Ooh.
Black cat bone.
Oh yeah.
Some hellebore. So yeah, these we just kind of wanted to put a collection of things together, kind of show you what kind of magic.
Yeah, I see you've even got a little Buckeye in there. I included Buckeye in this book.
I noticed that, and it's I actually go harvest them over by Ralphie's house. They have a big tree there, and
there's a couple of really good ones in your area. There's one right across the street from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Really?
Yeah, there's like 2 or 3 of them over there, and we were up there. It was the last time I was up there to visit with you guys. We went to the Rock Hall on that Sunday, and as we were walking to the parking lot, we walked past these trees, and the Buckeyes were just literally raining down on us. And I was like, "Oh my goodness, gotta take." I mean, like I took home a bunch. It was wonderful.
That's cool. So Lisa Malloy says that we had aliens, and I'm like, yeah, probably.
I mean,
interesting. So do you have like a herb that's kind of like your catch-all? If you had one herb, which would it be?
Rosemary. 100% rosemary.
That's really funny, because 2 days ago we had Maja Daoust on here. She's an artist whose work is in our rotating exhibit space. And I said the same thing to her, and she was like, rosemary. And with her was the antiviral aspects of it, antibacterial, and just because it's just awesome. And I think that's really cool that that Patty and Maja are both on the same tip.
I feel like me and her should be friends now. For me, one of the reasons rosemary is so powerful is because I do a lot of ancestor work as sort of the cornerstone, the foundation of a lot of my practice. And
Badass Ancestors?
Yeah, Badass Ancestors is coming out in September 8th from Llewellyn Publishing. It's available for pre-order now.
So are you going to come back and talk about that when?
Oh my God, yes! I'm excited about Badass Ancestors. I'm like, obviously I get excited about every book I write, but Badass Ancestors it's uniquely personal for me, and so I'm really, really, really excited to share that with everybody. So there's a question from Kelvin Fraser. A question to Patty: do you consider yourself a green witch to a certain degree? I consider myself a generic witch. And by that, I mean, a lot of times people, they try to sort of, we like labels in the pagan community. We like to be like, I'm a hedge witch, or I'm a green witch, or I'm a bog witch, or whatever. And at the end of the day, my practice is all about what works for me and what doesn't. So I consider myself a pagan. I consider myself a witch. Some of what I do has its roots in traditional green witchcraft, but I don't know that everything I do has its roots in sort of the concepts behind green witchcraft. So the answer to that question is, well, kind of, maybe, sort of.
Yeah, I like that you said roots. So back to Rosemary and your ancestors before let's hijack this.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I go off on tangents all the time. It's like, oh, squirrel. Yeah, so I work with rosemary a lot because of the fact that it is associated with remembrance, among a lot of other things. And I like to burn it when I'm doing ancestor work, because my people are super chatty, and every time I have some burning, they tend to show up. So for me, it's been super effective. So I always have either fresh rosemary on hand. I've got some hanging in my window right now to dry. I just crunched up a bunch that I had harvested last year. And I just discovered this morning that the rosemary I planted in my front yard, right in front of my steps, is like, it's just like exploding. So I'm super excited about that. But yeah, that's my jam, rosemary.
So do you have an herb garden?
So kind of. I have places where herbs grow around my house. So the house I'm in right now, I just moved in here not last summer, but the summer before. So last summer was the first year that I actually got to plant things, because when I moved in here, it was too late in the year for me to actually get anything in the ground. So yes, I have, like I said, I have the aforementioned rosemary growing out front. I have lavender. I've got some oregano, which is coming back completely on a volunteer basis. I have a lot of culinary herbs. I always grow basil and thyme and stuff like that, because a lot of those do have magical properties. And it's like, hey, I can not only make magic with this, I can eat it. And I'm very excited about that. So actually this coming weekend, I'll be tilling the garden, and pulling out all the detritus from last year and getting soil turned and getting the plants in. And I always do have a row of various herbs to experiment with, because, why wouldn't I?
Yeah, exactly. So, can you kind of like, let's say I had some rosemary,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and let's say I was like, I gotta go do some magic.
Yeah.
Could you kind of tell me maybe what would my first steps be?
Well, your first step is going to be, what kind of magic do you want to do, Steven? That's the key.
Rosemary magic.
Rosemary magic. I like that. Rosemary magic is pretty handy. One of the great things is on page 68 of Herb Magic.
All right.
So rosemary is very cool. Like I said, I really like it. It's got a lot of different magical properties. Obviously, we talked about remembrance a little bit. You can use it for purification. You can use it to protect your household. You can have a pot of rosemary sitting by the front door to protect you from negative juju that might be making its way in. It's kind of an all-purpose herb. You can use it for healing. It's been used in love spells. One of the spells that's in the book that I actually really love is the Peaceful Protection Potted Plant. And it involves planting a rosemary seedling and invoking those protective energies into your home. Plus then you have something, like I said, you can eat it too, which is cool. But rosemary is just, it's all purpose, you can use it fresh, you can use it dried. I love the smell of it. So I like having fresh sprigs, I'll take fresh sprigs and put them in a little vase of water and stick them in my bathroom, just because it smells so good. I mean, who wouldn't want their bathroom to smell like herbs instead of bathroom? So, many different things you can do it.
Let's say you had a kid who had a bit of a lead foot and they were going to go on a multi-state adventure.
Yeah.
This kid needs all the help they can get.
Yeah.
Rosemary here. How would I put this together and give it to them in a way that they don't kill themselves or kill somebody else while they're doing it?
Yeah. So protection comes in a lot of different forms. I think the idea of protecting you from yourself and your own stupid decisions is something that, I don't know, certainly I probably could have benefited from in the past.
Seriously, if somebody wanted to make a spell which would make me not play around with my pocket knife all the time, that would be a heck of a protection spell for me. It is a Duke. It's really one of the greatest. Like, look at this guy.
It is a Duke. That's amazing.
And
that is really cool.
I just sit there and play with it, and then I cut my hand like crazy. So yeah, anybody wants to spell like that out there for me, that'd be great. But
yeah. I would probably take that rosemary, I would dry it up, and I would create, a pocket charm, or even something to hang around the rearview mirror. Right now, I have a pair of Han Solo's Millennium Falcon gambler dice hanging from my rearview mirror. But a protection charm to protect me from my own dumb decisions probably would come in handy too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So, we're supposed to have a workshop in a few weeks here at the museum. I don't know. Should we call it?
I don't know. When do we have that scheduled for? It's like June. What? June. Hold on, I'm looking at my calendar.
Let me pull up the calendar here, because I kind of had the idea. Maybe we could do a Zoom version of it if you'd be game.
Yeah, June 27th. I feel like let's wait to make that decision.
Okay. All right.
Let's wait till maybe halfway through June and see where things are at.
Really limit the class size.
Oh, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If we decide to go ahead and do it, I feel like we should. I mean, that space you have is pretty big, but it's limited attendance, I think. But let's wait to make that decision, because I don't want to.
Maybe we could sit outside.
Oh, we could.
So.
We could stand on the sidewalk, and we could bombard passersby with magical information. Excuse me, sir, would you like to smell this rosemary?
Usually when people around here are trying to give people herbs, the cars going by.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of herb. But
yeah. I've been in your neighborhood. I get it.
Hey, just being silly here. Cool. Anything that you want to share with the audience? Oh, can you tell me a story?
What kind of story
would you? How did you meet Tony? Tony, our partner in the museum. How did you ever meet Tony, our partner in the museum?
Oh my gosh. So Tony and I have known each other for a really, 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 really long time. Yeah. And I don't ever like to out people without them being nearby, or at least giving me consent to do so. So suffice it to say, Tony and I have known each other. We were introduced by a mutual friend who was forming a coven, and we were both part of that same coven.
Oh, wonderful. So I gotta also ask you, how did you meet this guy right here?
Oh.
And anybody that doesn't know, that's the founder of the museum, Raymond Buckland.
Yes. So Raymond Buckland was part of my upline. He was present at my initiation into this first coven. And it was, I think that may have been the first time I met him in person. I can't remember, because I had met him. I'd met him several times before he passed away. I would see him here and there, and he would come into town and do like the Light Expo and stuff like that. But I think that may have been the first time I met him.
I'm
sorry.
He was just hanging out.
He was sitting in this chair, and it was a big chair, like one of those big ones with like a huge thing behind it. But he was a tiny little man. Yeah. So it was it was an initiation. So it was dark, and there were candles, and it was, everything you ever thought an initiation should be. Without going into detail and revealing things. Everything you think an initiation should be, it was. But he was there, and it was amazing. He was so sweet. He was such a kind, dapper little guy. Yeah. So much knowledge, and the witchy and pagan community owes him such gratitude, because he really made it public. This was the guy in the mid to late 80s where his books were the only ones you could get, and he was putting his name on them. Now every bog witch with the internet is writing a book. But back then, it was they were few and far between.
He took a bold stand, and I was thinking about that in the collection, like when I'm giving the tour of the museum, because there's this whole part where when we first opened, we had a pretty huge reaction here in Cleveland. We had a large group of people here, and I'm kind of like, at the end of the day, I'm like, hey, Ray, what do you think? Do you have this kind of reaction when you open your place in Long Island? And he was like, well, many people enjoyed it, but shortly after, someone set my car on fire.
My God.
I mean, I get notes from Jehovah's Witnesses. I got one today. Like, nobody set my car on fire yet.
Well, that's good.
And he did tell me that it turned out to be okay, because then he went and bought the hearse. So
yeah. So here's what's really funny was Ray lived in a town that was only about 15 minutes from where I went to high school. But by the time I had heard of Ray Buckland, I was already living 5 states away down in South Carolina. But it turns out, like probably on some of my high school adventuring country cruises through corn country, I probably drove right past his house because I have a pretty good idea of exactly where it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was like 15 minutes from where I went to high school.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was really cool.
So let's see. Kuan says video and
sound. Lost video and sound. That's weird. I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, and Tony must not have, because she said don't answer.
He says don't answer him.
Sorry, Tony.
Well, it was that time we were in a prison cell together, and
oh man, that's so fun. We Tony, if you're listening, I gotta talk to you. I got some exciting news. I got an email today that I want to discuss.
How deliciously cryptic.
Oh yeah, I know, but it's cool. Like, I did a little happy dance when I got it. I was like, ooh.
I love getting the kind of emails that make me do a happy dance.
Oh yeah, especially
these days.
Like, I'm the type, it seems with me, when I put things out there, it takes a long time for it to manifest and come back,
Right.
And when I'm just like, yeah, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
That's always when Jillian and I, we were hiking a couple weeks ago, and she was like, man, gee, mister, I'm never going to find a morel, And the second she said that, she looked on the ground and there was one. So, maybe she has a bit of that as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So what else you got going on? Anything exciting?
Well, right now I'm just trying to survive this whole pandemic quarantine thing. I think one thing that I've got going on which has been kind of an ongoing, is I've found myself sort of at the center of several different groups, pockets of people that are doing online gatherings as our way of staying sane, because I think right now it's hard to maintain spirituality in the middle of a global pandemic. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, everything sucks. What do I have to work on right now? So that's actually been kind of huge for me. It's been something that I've found very it's gratifying on a personal level, but it's also cool to know that people are pulling together. I don't think any of us expected things to turn out the way they did. This was not the apocalypse that Mad Max promised us, and that's okay. Instead, people are banding together and doing great things together. And people are creating, they're making art, they're writing words, they're making music. I am working on a couple of projects that I can't talk about just yet, but let's just say there are projects.
Nice and cryptic.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah,
it's I've been pretty much myself personally, I've been just trying to stay focused on what we have at the museum.
Right.
And it's that's really kind of helped, because it's been a good grounding thing for me.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned right when everything fell apart, I was just like, oh my gosh. And then I gradually kind of crawled my way back, and now I feel like I'm back a functioning member of society. But
I think it's going to be a long time before any of us feel like we're truly part of society again. Like, I don't even want to leave my house.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is that I've reopened the museum and people come in and they hang out and it's nice, but it's also
Yeah.
just like you stay over there, I'll be over here.
Like,
It's cool.
sorry, you gotta be 6 feet away, pal. Yeah, I know. I
Back
know.
up, sucker. You know. But,
You need a mask with obscenities on it so that people will
yeah.
be like, "Does that say what I think it is?" It's like, well, yes,
Well,
sir, it does.
what I really want is a mask with a smiley face because I found that like people like look at me and I'll give them like the look, and they're
Yeah.
thinking, why is this guy bugging out? And it's like,
I
"Ah,
saw a lady the other day.
and
I had to go to the grocery store, which is like the only place I go at this point. And I only go at like 9 o'clock in the morning as soon as Aldi opens because poop, I'm in and out. And there was a lady in there whose mask was like a dog snout. So from here down, she was a
yeah,
Labrador Retriever, and I was like admiring her mask. I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I was like, that
yeah,
is wonderful. I was just wearing one that had like Columbus Blue Jackets on it, but no, she's like dog muzzle. I'm like, this is awesome.
yeah. So, yeah. Speaking of masks, I like your. I can't visually show them, so I probably shouldn't even talk about them there. But then I might
Right.
get
So,
kicked off Facebook if I did show them. So,
yeah. Are we talking about the Roman winged amulets?
yeah, exactly. Which we have
Yes.
one in the museum actually, and
Oh, do
it's a
you?
yeah, and
Oh,
it's one that Ray had collected. It's a flying green penis,
yeah.
and you use it to ward off plague, which I think
Yeah.
is kind of funny because when I think of warding off plagues, I don't really think about flying green penises, but
I mean, any port in a storm at this point, But it seems like when I saw that fabric on Spoonflower, I was like, oh, this is perfect for plague masks. This needs to happen. This needs to happen.
uh, so yeah, cool. So
Yeah.
anything you want to say? Any shout outs that you want to give? Anything
Oh
that
my gosh. I always hate when people ask me that question because I'm like, crap, if I answer and I give a shout out to one person, everybody else is going to be hurt. What if I forget
you
somebody?
know, right?
It's like I'd like to thank the Academy. Shit, I forgot my mom. That kind of thing. No, the people who matter to me the most know who they are. I'm sorry.
That's how I feel as well.
Yeah,
People,
yeah. It's like when I'm writing a book and they're like, "Who would you like to put in the acknowledgments?" It's like, oh,
oh, yeah.
my dog. I just want to put my dog in the acknowledgments because he doesn't judge me. That's it. No, the people who are keeping me sane know who they are. So
Okay, so one thing I do want to ask you about is
yeah.
you have a day job, but then you have a pretty cool side gig, I guess is what you would call it. You are the writer for aboutreligions.com, right?
Well, I was up through the end of February. Yeah, at the end of February, they decided they were going to eliminate all their freelancers at about.com/learnreligions. So
Okay.
any articles that you read by me that are up there, if you find a typo, you're out of luck because I don't have access to edit it anymore. So
Really? So you're no
yeah,
longer there. So
nope.
I gotta say that's really too bad because I really, 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 really love your writing there. And
I really loved writing for them. It was a great opportunity.
So I just want to show this to people here that if you ever have any questions about paganism and Wicca, learnreligions.com. Patty Wigington was the writer for it, and she has like a long history of articles on there of things that you can find out about. One's like how to come out of the broom closet, which is such an important thing for people to actually think about because it's like, I mean, you are who you are, and
Right.
like witches do spend a lot of time in the shadow, right? But you really have to spend all this time in the shadow with your friends and family.
Yeah, it's funny because that article about coming out of the broom closet, for me, that was one of the first ones I wrote for them. And I started writing for them in spring of 2007. So I was there for almost 13 years. And that was one of the first articles I wrote because I asked several friends, I was like, okay, guys, I gotta put together a website. What do you want to read about? And they were like, how about this? And that article got so much more traction than I ever expected it would, because I had never personally actually been in the broom closet. So I had no idea that there were so many people who were struggling in the community with this issue. Like, what do I say? Who do I tell? How do I tell them? What happens if they, what if they set my car on fire? All of this was like completely off my radar. I had no idea. So I made sure that I talked to people who actually were in the broom closet or who had to come out of the broom closet. Because my own experience was just kind of like, well, I decided I'm practicing witchcraft. That's cool. That's like, I'd never been closeted in that perspective.
Yeah.
But yeah, that article got a lot of traction, and I hope that they keep it up there for eternity, because apparently a lot of people really have gotten some value out of it.
Yeah, I hope so too. It's like I said, it's a really incredible resource, and
thank you. Yeah, there's 13 years worth of articles on that website. So
yeah, exactly. So that must have been kind of tough when you were no longer writing for it, because you're like, I kind of imagine that you're the type of person that constantly you're like, oh, this would be a wonderful thing for me to explore, and then now you're like, well, I guess I'll just write a long book about it.
Yeah, well, it's funny, because I had kind of suspected over the course of the 12 and a half, 13 years that I had been writing for them, there'd been a lot of changes at About.com. They were About.com, and then they were somebody else, and then they were Learn Religions, and they had gone through several different ownership phases. They had eliminated the blog feature, which was one of the most popular features that I had on my page. I was like the pagan advice columnist. I mean, they eliminated all of that stuff, and they're like, oh, now we're going to create a vertical. Now you don't have your own page. You just have a bunch of articles with your name on it, all this other stuff. So they had done a lot of stuff. And part of that was they had gradually sort of chipped away at the sheer volume of freelancers who wrote for them. When I first started, there were 1,100 people who had separate sites, each on their own topic. When I left, I was one of, I think, 6 that were left. So they had sort of chipped away at the people who were creating all of this really rich, really valuable content.
Yeah.
So I'd kind of seen the writing on the wall. I had known it was coming. I just didn't know if it was going to be, is it going to be February? Is it going to be 2025? Is it going to be August? I didn't know, but I knew it was coming. So it's one of those things where when one door closes, another one opens up. I spent a lot of time creating content for that website. I spent a lot of time doing research and writing articles, formatting things, and finding, images to use, and maintaining social media and all this other stuff. So all of a sudden I was like, okay, cool. I just got 20 hours a week back that I can do anything I want with. So I was like, okay, cool. I have other projects I can work on. So while it was disappointing, because it was such a huge part of my life and it opened up a lot of different really great opportunities for me.
Yeah.
And I was sad that it came to a close, but I'm just kind of like, okay, cool. I guess it's time for me to do other things. And everybody's been super supportive of that. So I've been teaching some online classes in partnership with one of the local shops. And that's been loads of fun. I'm getting more writing on my personal stuff done than I certainly ever did before.
So which shop are you doing classes for?
So it's biglizconjure.com. Mambo Liz runs a little shop in Reynoldsburg, Ohio, and she was actually the one who kind of got me started doing Zoom classes in the first place. In fact, I've got one tomorrow night it's an ancestors class. Excuse me. And last week I did one on magical self-defense. And it's been great because I can teach classes sitting right here and not have to go anyplace. So it's been a lot of fun. Plus I've been doing a lot more social things, like hosting like witchy chats, just like, hey, show up, we're having a witchy hangout, that kind of thing. So it's been good.
What's the website?
It's biglizconjure.com. But if you go to my website, pattywigington.com, and go to events, you can click on it right there.
So let's take a look here. Oh, remove from stream.
Oh.
Let's
I
see.
love the share screen feature. This is great.
Yeah, I mean, this is. Let's see here. Share screen. All right. So this.
Oh, there we are.
I take this is it.
That is
very
her website.
cool.
Yes. Yeah. But like I said, if you go to pattywigington.com and just click on events, it's got all my upcoming class listings, so you can just follow the trail to your heart's content.
All right. Well, I will hope that our guests will do that because.
Oh, look, there they are. See? Look. Oh, did you see the purple? Those ones are me.
Here we go. All right.
Oh, look, there's me again. Can you tell?
So yeah, pattywigington.com. What was that?
I said, can you tell purple's my favorite color?
Did you say? Yeah, I kind of assumed that after a while. That's cool.
But I feel like that's like the default color for every woman in the pagan community. Like every time I go someplace, people are like, "Oh, look, you're wearing purple too. I love purple," and I'm like, "I know."
Yeah, it's I mean, it's a symbol of royalty and as well as one of death, correct? So.
Yes. Well, it's a power color. It's my power phase here.
Yeah, well, very cool. So, Patty, it's always such an honor and pleasure to hang out with you. And
I love hanging out with you.
I hope we can do this again next month in real life.
Yes.
But, you know, if we can't, maybe we just do another stream and hang out. And you know, it's, I don't know. We'll figure this out.
I feel like everybody's expectations are lowered at this point. Everybody's kind of like, no, you know, we just kind of show up and hang out. So it's all good.
Yeah, which is great. Let's see. Any last comments here from anyone? Lisa says the Roman fertility amulets. Yep.
Yeah.
Kelvin says
Lisa knows. She saw them on Facebook.
So, cool. Well, thank you so much, Patty. PattyWigington.com. Go hang out with her. And for the rest of you, hold on just a second. I'm going to say goodbye to the crew, and then I want to talk to you for just a second here.
Okay.
All right. So, welcome up, Patty. Tony did say, good to see you, Patty.
Good to see her, too. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. So, Kelvin, Mercy. All right, so this is the part where I say thanks to everyone for tuning in, checking it out. You know, I mentioned it a few times. If you go to bucklandmuseum.org, you can order tickets. I hope people get into the habit of doing that because it's kind of awkward to be like, well, you can't really come in because you didn't order a ticket. Oh, why can't I come in now? Well, because the next group starts in 20 minutes. So, but we're going to figure that kind of thing out here at some point or another. So, I guess this is the part where I just sign off and I look at each and every one of you in the eye and I say, stay witchy, my friends. All right. Stay witchy.